We've got late breaking news. Late breaking news. What's up, Tannerook? Tannerook says, you're late, bro. Yeah, I know, because I'm working right now. And I was like, didn't have a lunch break, so I'm taking my lunch break right now. And all right, big news, big breaking news. I mean, come on. I mean, like 2 weeks ago, we get the announcement on a Monday, actually on a Tuesday, because it came after the holiday, I think. Or is it Monday? I forget, man. Anyhow, 2 weeks ago, Microsoft, big acquisition. They buy, Activision Blizzard, massive acquisition, shook the industry. And a lot of the discussion was, what is Sony's next move, right? Like, what is Sony going to do? A lot of people are like, what is Sony going to do to kind of counter or have an answer to Microsoft's acquisition of Activision and Activision Blizzard? And Bender String says, I totally call this. He's like, I've been saying forever that Sony should go after Bungie. Actually, Bender, a lot of people have been saying that. By the way, please hit that like button and retweet. Actually, you know what? Hold on a sec here. I got to retweet the link here. Give me a sec. Tweet this real quick. Let everyone know that we're live. Give me a sec here. Retweet this real quick. Sorry about that, everyone. Just want to retweet this. All right. All right. Please, everyone, hit that like button. And I'm going to drop the link here in the live chat. Please retweet the link if you don't mind. All right. So, yeah, this is pretty big news. So again, Boss Man Davey says, bad move by Sony. What's up, Ice Queen Gaming? What's up, DeFloyd? See some familiar faces here. Thank you all for stopping by. I know this is super impromptu. But yeah, I mean, this is huge. I mean, obviously not same scale as Sony acquired Activision Blizzard, but this is still a big acquisition for Sony. And it's interesting because we know that Microsoft had some discussions with trying to acquire Bungie, trying to get back in the fold. I'm assuming most everyone knows Bungie's history here. Famous for, I think, was it Populous? I think was one of the games they developed before Halo, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there. I don't remember, but Halo was a game that really, put Xbox on the map and really made Xbox a viable platform in the console space. And it just carried Xbox on its back for quite some time. But Bungie had left Microsoft. They wanted to do their own, they wanted to kind of move on from Halo. And for those who've played Halo ODST, there's actually teasers of the Traveler. There's a poster of the Traveler. So there's an Easter egg of Destiny in Halo ODST. So there were some early indications there that game, was kind of in the works. So what's up, the finest? It says BRAP, Bungie, wow. Yes, wow indeed. So they acquire, so Bungie went on to make Destiny, and as we know, they Sony last console generation was able to lock down some exclusivity agreements with Bungie as relates to weapons, certain raids, or certain strikes were were like exclusive to the Sony PlayStation platform for like a year. It was pretty ridiculous, actually. It was a little bit out of control, a little egregious in my opinion. There were some weapons there. I think some of the strikes never even made it to the Xbox version of Destiny. And so Destiny's this platform, this ongoing games as a service platform, which I was having a quick conversation with my buddy OBM And he said, "Hey, this acquisition makes sense. Many console manufacturers or publishers, they should all have a platform like this, a games as a service type game, and this certainly addresses a need that Sony just doesn't have right now. They don't have a games as a service, um, in their portfolio or publishing something like that right now via first party. So, um, but anyhow, so yeah, so Destiny, Bungie's had that relationship with Sony that started last console generation. As I mentioned, the exclusivity deals that happened with Destiny, and now here we are, um, you know, almost 9 years later after Destiny, and Sony's acquiring them for $3.6 billion. So here's the article I pulled up from GameStop. I actually first saw this on Twitter by Jason Schreier. But here's the GameStop article. Sony buys Bungie for $3.6 billion. This is it's a big deal. Obviously not as big as the deal of Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard. But Sony's buying Bungie in a deal valued at $3.6 billion. It was announced today by GI.biz. Or GI Buzz, they were the first to report the deal, which will make Bungie become an independent subsidiary of Sony Interactive Entertainment. So I did hear that when Microsoft was in negotiations or trying to bring Bungie back into the fold, Bungie wanted to kind of remain independent. Bungie really didn't have I guess a good, from what I understand, necessarily a good working relationship per se with, um, let me actually pull this up. Let me hold on a sec here. Let me blow this up here a little bit. There we go. So Sony, I mean, so Bungie didn't really have a great relationship with Activision and per se as a publisher. And it's kind of why they broke that partnership, kind of dissolved. They kind of went their own ways. Part of that, from what I remember, was that Activision kind of had that churn and burn mentality, or that having to pump out content and content and content over and over and over again. They were giving Bungie some additional resources too to help with content for Destiny. So here's what PlayStation boss Herman Hulse said of the deal. He's saying, "I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Bungie to the PlayStation family. Bungie creates community-driven games with outstanding technology that are enormous fun to play. And I know that everyone at PlayStation Studios will be excited about what we can share and learn together." It's an important point here. Excited about what we can share and learn together. As you know, if you've read or kind of kept up with Sony's first party, they do work together. It's a very collaborative environment. Even speaking of Herman Hulse, if you think of the Decima engine and Guerrilla Games, they actually lent the Decima engine to Kojima when he was working on Death Stranding. So he didn't have to, build his own engine from the ground up, and they do help each other with development and things like that. So, so the big question, obviously, that everyone's going to ask is, what does this mean long term for, um, what does it mean for, exclusivity of Destiny, and so I want to read that here. Bungie will continue to release multi-platform games going forward, and the company will have the option to self-publish and reach players whatever they choose to play. We've had a strong partnership with Bungie since the inception of Destiny franchise, and I couldn't be more thrilled to officially welcome the studio to the PlayStation family. CEO Jim Ryan said. So again, they're going to continue to release multi-platform games. My understanding is in the conversations that Microsoft was having with Bungie when they were looking to reacquire Bungie was that they didn't want Bungie to kind of remain independent per se. They wanted to keep Bungie, and more particular their next game exclusive to the Xbox platform, which Bungie did not want that. So this is part of that deal happening, where Bungie is going to continue to release multi-platform games going forward, which would include their new IP, it seems like. So Jim Ryan went on to say that buying Bungie gives Sony access to a wider audience, and that's a good point, because someone in the live chat, I think it was Nine Lives, says it doesn't make sense in his opinion. I'll tell you why this kind of makes sense. Nine Lives. We understand how vital Bungie's community is to the studio and look forward to supporting them as they remain independent and continue to grow. Like Bungie, our community is core to the PlayStation's DNA and share passion for the gamer and building the best place to play will now evolve even further. It's this game per Jim Ryan. Um, Bungie boss P. Parsons said of the deal, both Bungie and Sony Interactive Entertainment believe that game worlds are only the beginning of what our IOP will become. I interpret it as a metaverse. And he also added, our original universes have immense potential, and SIE support will propel Bungie to global into becoming a global multimedia entertainment company dedicated to delivering on our creative vision. So this story is continuing. This is I'm sure we'll learn more about this acquisition in the next coming days. So this is huge. This is huge. Again, not as big as the Activision acquisition by Microsoft, or Microsoft acquiring Activision. But this is big. I mean, the Bungie is given the history of Bungie, and it's interesting, and it's some irony here in the sense that Bungie was a first party Xbox studio, and now it's not. Now it's a Sony studio, and although remaining independently, it's still owned under Sony, which is, who would have thought that? Like if you would have said to me, BRAP, 20 years ago when Halo came out, that Bungie is going to be under PlayStation one day, I would have been like, ha, you're fucking nuts. But as we've learned the last 2 weeks, anything is potentially possible in the gaming space these days with these acquisitions. I mean, shit. I mean, at this point, who would be surprised if Microsoft bought Ubisoft, right? Who'd be surprised if Sony bought Sega or Capcom? And I got to be honest with you guys, I don't think, it's hard to, I really do try to stray away from the, who's Microsoft going to buy next conversation? Who's Sony going to buy next conversation? I do have some concerns about consolidation in the gaming industry, which is a different conversation, which more people should be discussing, I think, in my opinion. I don't think it's discussed enough, but that's another conversation for another day. But it's look, this doesn't surprise me in the sense that we know that Sony had $18 billion in cash or PlayStation had $18 billion in cash to either maybe acquire studios or money had third-party content, which they've done. Lock up second-party content, things like that. So this is that vision coming to fruition, and so and by the way, Nine Lives, I appreciate the comment here. It says good on Sony, but in my opinion, it doesn't make sense. And here's where it makes sense. By the way, long term, and this is way down the road. Many of us don't even know what the metaverse is. I mean, it's kind of an extension. I always say Ready Player One is the metaverse, and maybe that is way down the line, but I think in its infancy, it's this online community, virtual community built around platforms like Fortnite, like Grand Theft Auto, basically games that are games as a service, right? Warzone. And now think about Destiny. Destiny fits that. And I think this positions Sony to kind of pivot to, have that platform that connects them to maybe the metaverse, years down the road, right? So that's where it makes sense. And I think it's important for them to have that community, because this opens up other opportunities for Sony. You think about streaming opportunities. We know that they're already in that right now. I mean, a lot of people talk about Game Pass and xCloud, where Sony's been doing streaming much longer than Microsoft has with PlayStation Now. And the PlayStation Now originally started off as a streaming only service. Remember, Sony acquired Gaikai, which, we can have a debate or conversation around how that worked out, and whether it did work out at all. But they've been doing that. They've been looking at other ways to get content into the hands of people. And I don't think, and Jim Ryan has kind of been, I think he was brought in to really kind of help Sony pivot from their traditional model, much slower than probably most people would want them to, maybe. But nonetheless, they're putting themselves in a position that they have this platform now, that will flow into, Sony's network, to the PlayStation ecosystem. When you log in to play Destiny, you'll be logged into their servers or to their ecosystem, whatever the case is. And now this thing reaches across multiple platforms, and that's the play here. That's why this makes sense for Bungie, or for Sony, and for Bungie. I would venture to say that this deal makes sense to them because they get to remain kind of independent, but they also get the support from maybe a revenue standpoint, and just from an infrastructure perspective, and in terms of getting support maybe from the other studios, from Sony themselves. And maybe, who knows, maybe there's some opportunity, maybe, and I'm just thinking this off the top of my head. I don't know for sure, but maybe this is an opportunity too. Remember, Sony's also an entertainment company. There's maybe some opportunities for, maybe Bungie has ideas to take Destiny outside the gaming space. Maybe there's a movie or a television show or something like that. Those are things that Sony can help in terms of getting that brand outside of the gaming space, which Destiny is in right now. So maybe that's a play long term, but I think this makes sense for both parties involved for the reasons I just mentioned. It's and this is kind of this is a big get. It fills a void that Sony doesn't have. I mean, many of us have said, hey, Sony doesn't have that first party multiplayer exclusive. I mean, they haven't had it since Factions. They are working on, I can tell you, they are working on two FPS exclusives. I don't know what those are, but they are working on them. So that's in the pipeline, but those aren't out yet. So those are further down the road. So those aren't, that's not today. That's, who knows, 3 years from now. But they do have that. But again, that's kind of one of the things that people have been critical of Sony about, that they don't have an FPS in their portfolio that they can call theirs. And through acquisition, they've done that now. Now, again, this is not going to be an exclusive. It's going to be multi-platform. That was in the press release there. Or in the article about GameSpot. So, but still, it fills a void, a need that Sony has. It makes sense for Sony, especially given the relationship that Sony's had in the past with Bungie. Which, again, this is just frustrating. I mean, not frustrating. This is just I should say frustrating. I don't know why I said frustrating. This is just interesting, is what I'm trying to say. This is interesting, to say the least. And it's going to be interesting to see how this thing kind of pans out in the future. Hold on just a sec here. My X out of Teams here. Oops. Here we go. I'm sorry. Give me a sec here. I'm multitasking. Give me a sec. All right. So, T-Rock 40 says, the $2 super chat. Thanks, T-Rock. Says, how is Forte? You know what, man? I need to call Forte. I think Forte's at work right now. I should call him. But yeah, Forte's got, I got to call Forte, figure out what his, obviously we'll talk about this more on BRAP Wednesday, but I got to get Forte on to discuss this breaking news of, Microsoft acquiring, not Microsoft, Bungie being acquired by Sony. So, again, I don't typically like having this conversation, but at this point, who's next? I mean, right? Who's next? It's like the $1 Million Man is running through the gaming industry right now and laughing and saying everyone has a price. So who's next? Who's next? If Sony bought Sega or Capcom, would surprise me. I think, I don't ever see, and I could be wrong, I don't see Sony buying a big publisher. They could do it if they wanted to. despite some of the misinformation or disinformation I saw out there more this past weekend with Sony's financials, which is pretty bad, by the way. I think as a community, we need to kind of, just cautiously, um, we need to be a little, we need to tread carefully with having conversations regarding financials and even, development and stuff like that of games, because many of us here aren't financial analysts or game developers. So we just got to be careful because out of those conversations sometimes, unfortunately, and I don't know if it's purposely done, but out of that conversation sometimes a lot of disinformation comes out. And that happened this weekend with, with the that Sony was $1.2 trillion in debt, and if you actually do some more digging research, it's actually not the case. And that article that was being circulated was giving dollar amounts when actually it was supposed to be yen. So that, I mean, think about that. I mean, if the article's not getting that amount right, that's a problem. And so, we just got to be careful, I think, as a gaming community, that we're not creating false narratives or disinformation, because we're not necessarily experts in the industry, and many of us aren't. I'm not. Any information that I get, I typically I am asking questions of people that are in the industry to try to get answers to the questions I have, because I just don't know. Like, I'm not a game developer. I'm not a financial analyst. I'm not an analyst who studies the industry. So I'll reach out to Matt Piscatella of MPD and kind of ask him direct questions and pick his brain, or I'll read or connect with the folks at DFC Intelligence and ask them questions. And we should always go to the individuals that are the experts, right? They're the SMEs, if you will, subject matter experts. So just something I just noticed. Just got to be careful. But anyhow, but yeah, this is actually again, I mean, this came out of left field. I think there's some people in the community that have been discussing kind of Bungie, Sony for some time. I think someone earlier in the chat mentioned that. But again, it's going to be interesting to see what Sony does next. I mean, are they going to make another acquisition of a studio? Maybe. I see Sony more likely. I don't, again, never say never. I mean, they could acquire Capcom, maybe, or Square Enix. Square Enix is someone else that, if you think about the relationship, and if we look at this, the relationship the last, 10 years, 9 years with Bungie and PlayStation, there's a relationship there. You think about the relationship that Square Enix has had with Sony over the last 25 years, as we get to the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy VII, which helped put the PlayStation on the map. But again, wouldn't surprise me if Sony acquired Square Enix. I would say that if there's any acquisition, that's more likely than a Capcom. But but again, I could see Sony more so acquiring studios and kind of building its portfolio of studios under Sony. And it's interesting. Sony's willing to buy studios, and they see the value of not having some content maybe exclusive. Now, I initially thought, before reading this, before I read that Bungie will continue to release multi-platform games going forward, I was thinking to myself, well, is Sony going to use this as a leveraging tool now with Microsoft to ensure that Call of Duty stays on PlayStation? I don't think that's the case. That's not going to be the case, because again, Bungie, we know that based on their release, they're going to continue to release multi-platform games going forward. But it's interesting, like, what's next now for Sony? Who are they going to buy next? Are they going to buy anyone next? Is this kind of kind of the one acquisition they're going to make this year? I got to imagine they're definitely kicking the tires at other acquisitions, and I wouldn't be surprised if they made another acquisition some point this year. I'm seeing some people in the chat say give SOCOM to Bungie. I wouldn't be surprised if SOCOM's already in development. And actually, Dharma brings up a great point here, by the way, Dharma. I got to go back to Dharma here real quick, because I think Dharma brought up a great point. So Sony needs to make their future multiplayer titles on PC simultaneously, like Microsoft's done with Halo Infinite, as an example. Otherwise, it will be another Last of Us faction scenario where the player base is relatively small. I agree with that, Dharma. I think at this age, if you're going to have a multiplayer game, you should have that on PC as well for the reasons you just mentioned. I think that's a great point. And this again, this acquisition gives Sony the inroads into PC now with Bungie having Destiny and Destiny's on PC as well. So again, they've addressed this through this acquisition, but I think that's a great point. And honestly, Dharma, it wouldn't surprise me if Sony's future multiplayer titles do make their way on PC, day and date. I could totally see that happen. I think at this day and age, especially with shooters, it just makes sense to have those games on PC, especially with things like crossplay that we have today. So it's a great point, man. So what is T-Rock says, ask me one if his boy Strauss has said anything with Take Two. I'll ask him. I don't think he has. I see some people saying Sony made a better move and cheaper. They're comparing the acquisitions. Look, it's who knows if it's better, right? I mean, these acquisitions are best for these companies for addressing specific needs. So I don't like to say better per se. And if you were to ask me, what do you think is a better move? I'd probably have to think about that a little bit to kind of digest it a little bit more. But they both, I mean, just looking at these acquisitions, I mean, they both address, I think, needs that both companies have. And so is one better than the other? I don't know. I mean, how are we going to, I guess like my question is like, what does better mean? Like, how are we quantifying better? I mean, better monetarily? I mean, better in terms of positioning themselves in a subscription service, base. And again, I mean, you think about Sony, perhaps, and again, the best Destiny is free to play right now, but perhaps Sony could. We know that Spartacus is coming. Maybe with Bungie being part of Sony now, maybe they start again. While Bungie's free to play, maybe some of these new the was it the Witch Queen, I think, is coming out next month. Maybe something like that. Those expansions, maybe they get dropped and become part of that service where people are getting that content as part of the subscription. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see how this is going to play out, long term. So what is everyone's, I'm seeing a lot of people talk about this right now. So I'm interested if what everyone's thoughts are on this acquisition. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a poll up here real quick. Let's do this. Let's put a poll up. All right, just put the poll up here. Poll is asking, good move by Sony to buy Bungie. Keep this poll up for about a minute or two. Let me see if I can get Forte on the phone. Let's see Forte here. I'm going to call Forte right now. See if we get Forte on the phone. By the way, we got like 206 people here watching. Please hit that like button if you're new. Subscribe. Hit the bell notifications so you're alerted when we go live. All right, I don't think Forte's picking up. All right, Forte's not picking up. All right, so let's see here. Dustin Griffin says, good move for Sony or good for consumers? I mean, I don't think this really impacts consumers. Oops. I don't think this really impacts consumers, Dustin. I mean, again, according to this article, Bungie will continue to release multi-platform games going forward. So I don't, I'm not seeing. It's this is kind of a static situation for consumers. I think. I mean, nothing as far as we know, nothing's changing for consumers. So I just think it is what it is. Go Got Jay with the $2 super chat says check at Chris underscore during timeline 3 interesting tweets. All right, let me check this out. See what you're talking about here. At Chris underscore during. All right, let's see this. All right, Chris String, head of. I need to follow him. He's head of game industry. Biz. Let me follow this guy here real quick. All right, so here's what Chris String is saying. I hope I can share this too. But by the way, give me a sec here. Freya Chamberlain with a $2 says, buy yourself a beer, Chief. Thank you. It's a little bit too early for beer here right now in the States, but I suppose it's 5 o'clock somewhere. All right, let's see if I can get this here. Give me a sec. See if I can. Give me a sec here. All right, give me a sec. Let's pull this up. All right, here we go. This is Chris Dring, and here's what he's saying about the acquisition. All right, he's saying the motivation behind Sony's acquisition of Bungie is to help boost their own abilities to make live service multi-platform games. Equally, Sony unlocks potential to Bungie to strengthen its technical capabilities and the prospect of taking its games to movies, TV. So that's pretty much it's everything I just mentioned earlier. And you got to remember, I mentioned the part about the TV thing, TV movies, right? And it does again own abilities, live service, multi-platform games, something that Sony just really hasn't had in its portfolio. I mentioned earlier, they needed to have something like this. The deal was in the works for the past this is interesting. We didn't know this. The deal was in the works for the past 5 to 6 months. I assume that this deal just didn't happen overnight. Like I wasn't thinking that Jim Ryan, after hearing the deal of Activision Blizzard, was on the phone with Bungie saying, "Hey guys, you know what? Let's make this deal like right now." This, we know these things take time, just months of conversations. So the deal was in the works for the past 5 to 6 months. It's not a reaction to the Take-Two, Zynga, or Microsoft Activision deals. That's interesting. Interesting insight there. So it's not a response to. I know a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, they're responding to Microsoft." That doesn't seem to be the case here, and I don't think it is either. I know that Microsoft was in talks with trying to reacquire Bungie as well. And Jim Ryan told me we should expect more when it comes to further PlayStation acquisitions. Okay, so this answers kind of what we were discussing earlier. Sony is not done. Now, who's next? I mean, do they acquire a publisher? Is it ZeniMax, Enix, Square Enix? That to me makes the next, like if they're going to acquire anybody like a publisher, it's going to be Square Enix, in my opinion. I think they're the ones that make the most sense, given the relationship, given the affinity or not just the affinity, but how the really the Final Fantasy franchise has been synonymous with the PlayStation brand for 25 years. I mean, I know Final Fantasy 15 was multi-plat, but the next Final Fantasy, at least for the time being, is time exclusive. I don't know when it's going to come to the Xbox. Final Fantasy 7 Remake was supposed to come to the Xbox, and it's been a year now, and who knows? Well, I think we're going on 2 years now. We're going to be going on 2 years that the game released, and it's like nowhere to be found on the Xbox. So who knows? Look, I think with Konami, it's just a matter of buying the IPs that Konami owns: Castlevania, Metal Gear, and I forget what other ones Konami has under its belt. Nobody say Contra, please, because Contra was great on the NES. I don't know how a Contra translates to current generation or just, or today's atmosphere in gaming. But But this is another feather in the cap of Sony. I mean, look, I mean, and again, this isn't the one thing I'll say. The one thing in when these, well, actually, let me go back to the acquisitions piece, and I'll get to what I was going to say. Oh, Silent Hill, thank you. Silent Hill will be another one, which is rumored to be in the works. I did hear early in the generation that Sony was looking to bring back a lot of um, older franchises from its, that were popular on the PlayStation, PlayStation 2, bring those back. The Silent Hills, the Metal Gears, and they sort of did that, last generation with the PlayStation 4. We think of Shadow of the Colossus, right? That was a PlayStation 2 exclusive that got a remake, which if you haven't played that remake, it's Bluepoint did a tremendous job. That game was ahead of its time when it released on the PlayStation 2, but I mean, just the remakes just all amazing on the PlayStation 4. So, but Sony was going to, what I was told was that Sony was going to reach back into its pockets and really, I mean, if you listen to Jim Ryan's comments too, like content's going to define this generation for them. And they were really kind of looking to put their, their, for lack of a better word, put their boots on the necks of their competitors, and they were going to do that through putting out really good content. But part of that was reaching back into the war chest, not the war chest, but the chest of old content that was popular in old PlayStation, on the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, bring some of those old games back and re-release them on the PlayStation 5 as remakes. And so, Konami in that regard would make sense if they did that, kind of buy those IPs and kind of recreate them. But I think does it make sense to buy Konami? I mean, maybe Konami wants to be bought, period, and maybe not just give up the rights to those IPs. Who knows? But Capcom would be another interesting one. They have the Street Fighter thing locked down. I did hear that Capcom was considering, being acquired because of their financials, but then Resident Evil hit, and actually more than Resident Evil, Monster Hunter hit big for them and really helped them financially. So they're probably off the table, but who knows? I mean, Sony could be having those conversations now. So Square Enix, I think, is probably the next big one. But it's interesting. Jim Ryan's already saying, hey, we should expect more things to come with acquisitions of the PlayStation, which means they're already having conversations with other companies, and they may be even close to acquisitions with some of these companies they're having conversations with. So stay tuned for that. I mean, that's probably going to happen. But I don't think this is in response to Microsoft. I think if you go back to and you kind of read the tea leaves, what Jim Ryan was saying years ago, they were going to do this anyway, to lock up content. So and this goes and it makes sense, like when you think about it from a services base, right, from a subscription model. I don't believe, I'm not on board that I think subscription models are going to be the only way we consume content in the future. I think it's going to be one of the ways we consume content, very similar to how we consume content on television with Netflix and movies with Netflix. Movie theaters are still around. You can still buy movies. People still go to the movie theaters to watch movies. They don't wait for them to come out on Netflix or HBO. That kind of happened with the pandemic for obvious reasons, but I think that you'll still have those options. I think this is just a new business model that's kind of appearing, or that's finally arriving in the gaming space. And whether or not that's good for the industry, I mean, I haven't heard a consensus amongst anyone that it absolutely is. I've heard a variety of different opinions, which is kind of interesting. But that's a whole nother conversation, different podcast to have. But in a subscription model, when you think about what they want to do, as it relates to Spartacus, I mean, this makes sense that they acquire more developers to just create content. And the one thing I would, people talk about Game Pass being the Netflix of the subscription service in the gaming industry. I would say, if Sony would be like an HBO Max, they would be the HBO, if you will. I think, and I say that because HBO is really good at creating very good content. Look at their history and the portfolio of original HBO series that they've come out, that they've either created on their own or they've taken existing intellectual properties and made those into shows, like Game of Thrones being probably the most obvious one example of. But yeah, I mean, this makes sense for them that they're doing this. So I think these things were going to happen regardless of what Microsoft was doing in terms of Microsoft's acquisition. So, all right, let's take a look at this poll here. I just dropped it 11 minutes ago. Go ahead. So, all right. So the poll question was, good move by Sony to buy Bungie. 72% of the respondents say yes. 28% say no. So thank you, everyone who participated in the poll. Appreciate it. All right. Someone says until they commit to day and date, they will not be HBO Max. Well, no, I was. Let me. So, D-Hill, let me kind of expand upon that a little bit. Not HBO Max in the sense of the quality of content is what I'm kind of alluding to, which is why I gave those examples of, like not The Last of Us. I'm sorry, like Game of Thrones and other content that they've done. But yeah, I mean, technically speaking, I mean. Well, no, I mean, you know what? Now that I think about it, no, I mean, they don't have to do day and date to be like HBO Max because, I mean, well, no, I mean, let me backtrack here a little bit. So, yes, I see what you're saying. The point is they're not releasing new content the way HBO does. Yes, that's true. But again, the comparison was to the original content that HBO has, which is, I would argue, much of their content is better than what Netflix is doing on their own. In terms of quality content. I mean, not that Netflix doesn't have any good shows, but I wouldn't say that Netflix has done anything on the level of Game of Thrones or The Sopranos or The Wire. They just haven't. I mean, that's why I made that comparison, because Sony first party is still, I think, from a quality perspective, just on a different level from the rest of the industry right now. And we're going to see that, I think, with Horizon Forbidden West when that comes out in a couple weeks. So. I see some people saying Bungie lacks originality. Geez, you guys are brutal on Bungie. Look, Destiny lost me years ago, but I was considering going back to is it the Witch Queen? I hope that's right, by the way, because I keep calling it that, the DLC, the new DLC content that's coming out, the new expansion that's coming out next month. I keep calling it that. So Dark Striker says, let's see here. Xbox got ZeniMac with 7.5 billion. Similarly, literally did a very bad investment. So Dark Striker, I wouldn't. Here's the thing. It's more than just the monetary number. It's more than just the number that we should look at here. You're looking at 7.5 and what they got for 7.5. Yeah, I mean, they got obviously Sony. I mean, not Sony, but Microsoft got more studios, they got more IP, but dare I say that Destiny as an IP is more popular than anything that ZeniMax is cranking out right now. It just is. And so there's something to be said for that one intellectual property being more popular than what ZeniMax has put out. I mean, and that's what in Dark Striker, if you go back and you read Sony's motivation behind this acquisition, it's to help boost their own abilities to make live service multi-platform games. And also for Bungie could strengthen its technical abilities and the prospect of making its games to movies. So this acquisition can end up being bigger than just Sony acquiring Bungie or the Destiny piece, but also somebody who said Elder Scrolls over Destiny, you're crazy. No. That's fine if you think that, but no, I disagree with that. And I don't even like Destiny that much anymore. But I do disagree with that. I don't think Elder Scrolls is no. And Elder Scrolls doesn't have the same level of popularity as Destiny has. But But this thing could be bigger than just the gaming space, which could generate even more revenue for Sony. If you think about if they make Destiny become something into games and not games, they turn into something outside of games, movies, and television, which Sony can do. So, yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. Because Cinemax got more, but what does the more mean? Like, sometimes less is more, right? So I don't agree with that per se. Yeah, Black Steel 123 says, I'm pretty sure this is a win-win for both Sony and Bungie. I would agree with that, based on the things that Christopher Ding is reporting, which is up right here. Yeah, I would absolutely think that I do think that Destiny is more popular than Skyrim and Doom. I mean, I think those games certainly have a following, but you got to remember, I mean, Destiny is massive in scope, because it's an ongoing games as a service. You have higher levels of engagement in those games than you do, Skyrim and Doom, and even those games probably aren't a good comparison to Nottingham or whatever your name is. Um, like those are single player games. I mean, if you think about the engagement, and the players that are on Destiny, yeah, it's just a bigger, probably more popular franchise right now. Um, so I mean, I think the revenue numbers. I'd have to look at the revenue numbers. I would also look at the revenue numbers for Destiny over something like Skyrim too. Let me see something real quick. All right, I gotta look this up though. I'm trying to look at. I gotta look at. I got to look at the revenue numbers. There was an article on how big Destiny really was as an IP. I mean, it's pretty big. T-Rock says, if this was 6 months in the making, was Activision's response to Sony? Who knows? I mean, I know that Phil was having conversations with Bungie prior. Bungie wanted to have a level of independence that Microsoft didn't want to give them. And that was kind of what I've been told was the reason why that didn't happen. So somebody just brought up, would a company buy Epic with Fortnite? Yeah, I don't think anything's impossible at this point. Microsoft could come in and buy Epic. I mean, they could. I mean, this point, nothing surprises me anymore in this industry. I'm telling you, I've been gaming for 40 years. I just hit the 40-year milestone this year that I've been playing video games. I'm only 45, by the way. I started gaming when I was 5 years old. And some of you don't remember. I do remember the death of the gaming industry. Which is why one of the reasons why I really believe that it's important to make games of high quality, because what killed the gaming industry in the early 80s was that there was no level of quality. It was just you take any idea. It could be like the rock throwing game, and you turn it into a video game, and the industry became flooded with so many games that were just terrible. It literally killed the industry. The joke is that E.T. the game killed the industry, and that was a terrible game. But yeah, so Richard Rodriguez says Destiny 35.3 million players, Elder Scrolls 18.2 million. Thank you for that, Richard. So that was kind of my point. Like, and there's some other I think financial numbers too that talk about how big Destiny is too that I was trying to look up, but But yeah, but this is why I was saying that Destiny's bigger. And also, it's not really an apples to apples because you're talking about an on-game service, you know? Okay, even Elder Scrolls Online is bigger than that. I mean, so I mean, you guys, I mean, at this point, it's just, now we're just debating semantics at this point. It's ridiculous. But anyhow, um, but yeah, but Destiny certainly has that mainstream appeal, in that multiplayer online games as a service space that Sony does need to have. So all right, so this is going to be again going to be interesting to see how this thing plans out. We're definitely going to talk about this more on BRAP this Wednesday. We'll get the rest of the BRAP crew in here. Really interested in getting Forte's thoughts on this because Forte is a big Destiny fan, so we'll talk about that. But guys, let's not console war. I see somebody saying in the live chat that people are in damage control. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's try to have a civil debate in here. It's we can exchange ideas even if we don't agree, but we can do so in a way that's respectful and not, I don't know, inflammatory, I guess. But maybe that's wishful thinking on my part. I don't know. All right. All right, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream because my lunch break is over now. But I do want to say, first of all, thank you to everyone to stop by and watch the stream. It's super impromptu, by the way, obviously, right? Because this news kind of came out of left field. But we'll be back on Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time to discuss the acquisition of Bungie by Sony. I mean, this is big news. So we're going to talk more about this. Maybe we learn some more in the next couple of days. But again, we're going to talk about this. And please, if you're new to the channel, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. Really appreciate the support as always. We have over 100 people here watching. Please hit that like button if you haven't done so. On that note, everyone, enjoy the rest of the day. We'll see you Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're out.